right, welcome to our debut video of current events. Mr. Gravatt. This is supplemental material, stuff that can relate to our class. That's the goal, at least. Hopefully this is stuff that can relate to AP World History and AP Human Geography. A little bit more informal than the other videos I've posted regarding announcements and everything and our classroom assignments. So my purpose here is to kind of, you'll hear me say this a lot, the questions will be asked in class. What do I think about this event that's going on right now, or this or that? And one of the phrases I've commonly used is, I think that's a conversation for 2:30, meaning it's a conversation for after school, sitting down or sitting on the tables and talking about these things, which I'm always open to, assuming we can ever get back into the classroom. So for now, we'll have to do these on the online. These will be posted on YouTube, and I'm just going to share. Answer some of the questions you may have about the current events that are going on right now. Now, there's so many things going on. If we talked about them all in one video, it'd be an hour-long video. So we're not going to do that. We'll break it down into pieces. I'm going to try and do this about twice a week. All right. And today we are covering, or I want to talk about the situation with the NBA yesterday, the WNBA, and what's to come. Now, I'm going to go ahead and first flat out say out front that I support this decision by the NBA and the WNBA players, really do. But as a history teacher, I feel the need to kind of evaluate every protest. I'm a big believer in protests. Protests are, you could argue that America was built on protests, no matter how I don't want to say crazy, but how unique they may be. If you think back to the Boston Tea Party leading up to the American Revolution, listen to yourself say a bunch of men got drunk, dressed as Indians, and jumped on tea ships and dumped them into Boston Harbor to protest the British's tax on tea. Listen to yourself say that and how silly that sounds. Put yourself in those men's shoes and say, hey, honey, I'm going out to get drunk with my friends. We're going to dress up as Indians, and we are going to dump tea in the harbor. See ya. Bye. How crazy does that sound? America was built on maybe crazy protests. Things, Americans that have protested have typically pushed the envelope. People laid down in front of trains back in the 60s. The hippies would do that. They laid down in front of buses. During the civil rights movement, you had African Americans just riding on a bus. They called them freedom rides. We know what Rosa Parks did with refusing to sit in the back of the bus. The lunch counter sit-ins. Hey, we're going to go sit at a lunch counter as a form of protest. How could that possibly be a protest? But it is, and that's the beauty of protesting here in America. So now fast forward here to 2020. Yesterday, the Milwaukee Bucks led a protest, a boycott, a strike, whatever you want to call it. We need to make sure we've got our terms down, the appropriate terms down. There's still a lot of information that needs to come out about the protest, but before we can call it a strike. Right now, it's okay to call it a boycott, but here over the next few days, I think we might be in position to call it a strike. We'll see. I do, as a history teacher, when evaluating these protests, analyzing these protests, I do have concerns. I want this protest to succeed. Let me make that clear. I want that to succeed. But I do have concerns. All right. First of all, this is a peaceful protest. All the boomers that are on Facebook griping about why we can't have peaceful protests, well, here you are. Time to support it. All right. But here are my concerns about the NBA and the WNBA protest. All right. The NBA has been drawing pretty low ratings anyway. WNBA's ratings are even worse. Mike, the NBA has had, since Michael Jordan retired, the ratings haven't been what they were back in the 1980s or the 1990s. Jordan I think appealed to a more broad audience than LeBron James has. That's my argument in favor of Michael Jordan. Now, I think LeBron James is the top 3 player of all time in the NBA. But anytime the NBA does draw a rating, it usually is in an NBA Finals game. And the NBA has made no bones about it. They want LeBron in the finals. They're going to do whatever they can to keep him in the finals so they can draw those ratings at the end of the season. But their ratings, NBA ratings, are not good during the regular season. WNBA's are even worse. So my concern there is most of America going to just go like, the people that need to be, the people that need to have their minds changed, are they just going to look at this and go, no big deal? There was a survey I read about back in 2013, whenever the last NBA lockout was, or if there was going to be a lockout, I can't remember. And this took place in Boston, which, the home of the Celtics, Larry Bird, right? The survey polled the fans, and about 75% of them said they would not miss the Celtics if the NBA didn't play a season. How is that? So that says a lot. I mean, this isn't one of the cities with, the Celtics are a marquee team in the NBA, and their own fan base were saying they wouldn't miss them. And I got to believe other cities would feel the same way if Boston is, in my opinion. So I wonder if a lot of people, my concern is that I'm not sure enough people care about the NBA or WNBA anyway to really have their minds changed. And a lot of people have said they don't miss the NBA when it's not playing. So that's I'd say that could be a detriment to, that could work against the goals of the protest. Let's see. We don't know this yet, but are the players still being paid? In my opinion, if they're still being paid, I just don't know how much of a protest this is. LeBron James can afford to sit out. He's LeBron. He's got endorsements. He's making money worldwide. LeBron can afford to sit out, but what about the guy that sits down at the end of the bench? How much is he making a year? His salary could depend on those teams playing. So we need to keep that in mind as well, because that could hurt the unity of the league. That could hurt. The NBA needs to make sure they have a united, and WNBA, they need to make sure they have a united front. They can't have 20 of the most popular players stepping forward. They can't have 20 of the most popular players stepping forward wanting to do this, and the other 200 players, or whatever the number is, saying, no, we need that money. So that's something to think about. Another interesting question that I would challenge you to ask yourself, maybe even research, could this happen in college or high school? Could this happen in college or high school? Could we see college teams choose to sit out in protest? Could we see high school teams do it at that point? I'm not trying to stir the pot or anything, but one idea that I had a couple of years ago when the teachers were going on strike, or not on strike, I shouldn't say, we didn't go on strike. When the teachers were protesting in Frankfurt, my thought was, because the state representatives and the state legislature was so anti-public school teacher, I made a point out loud. I bet if the Kentucky Wildcat basketball team chose not to play until the teachers got their fair share of their retirement and their pensions, I bet that would change things. And so here we are, a couple of years later, the NBA's doing it for, we shouldn't even say just African Americans, but I think marginalized people that have been marginalized in our American society, and that's a very broad range of people. So I wonder if that's something we see down the road with college and high school teams. Being that my concern is that not enough people care about the NBA or WNBA anyway, based on the ratings. I think plenty of people like talking about it. I think there's more people though, or less people. The majority of people like talking about the NBA. They might watch the deep end of the playoffs. But for the most part, I think people are just going to talk about what they saw on Twitter or on the highlights on SportsCenter. I just don't think. My concern is I don't think enough people care about the NBA based on ratings. I could be wrong, but one league that does draw ratings every week that they play is the NFL. And what if the NFL players? If the NFL, let's say the Dallas Cowboys, choose to walk out in the middle of their Cowboy Stadium and throw their helmets out in the middle of the field, would that make people change their minds? I think there's a chance that it could. Enough people care about the NFL. It draws a massive rating every Sunday night. The Sunday night games, the Sunday afternoon games on CBS and Fox, the Sunday night games on NBC, the Monday night football games typically draw a big rating. What if those athletes choose to sit out? I think the NFL is the one league here in America that everybody cares about. Everybody has that draws the most interest. So what if the NFL decided to boycott or strike and not play this season? I think that would have a greater impact. The NBA might be getting the ball rolling. I think the NFL could be the league that gets this protest over the hump and makes it successful. So, and we also need to figure out what is success with this protest. So those are some things I'm going to challenge your thinking with on today's current events. Next week we could be talking about the protests and even some of the riots that we've seen. We'll definitely be talking about the election. Our president definitely gives us a lot to talk about. Never fails there. So those are all going to be things we do in this class, and I hope that we can connect this to our learning every week. All right, so that's Current Events Edition 1. Hope you enjoyed it. Gives you something to think about, and I'm anxious to have conversations with you guys about all of these events that are taking place. So, all right, last video I'm posting for the day, and let me know if you got any questions. Thanks, guys.